Dark Souls is a game that is incredibly important to the game world that we see today. It was one of FromSoft's first games, and without it, we wouldn't have games like Elden Ring, Sekiro, Bloodborne, or the dozens upon dozens of Souls-like games that we have had in the past decade. It truly is a unique game that set the groundwork for combat. However, even despite that, I feel as if it's overlooked. You never see it ranked too highly on a Soulsborne tier list, and half the time people talk about this game, it's about it being unfinished. But never about the magic, the beauty that this game truly has, which is what I wanted to talk about. I know I talk about more films and TV shows and the occasional anime and comics, but this game has made me feel emotions I never thought I'd feel when picking up a controller. So this is the beauty of Dark Souls. The NPCs are one of the most important elements in this game. They add something new and different, with each one giving us context to the world around us, without it being too on the nose. We start to learn things, objectives, what to get, where to get. If you listen to the NPCs closely, you start to understand the world around you. The feeling of hopelessness and dread fuels us. The characters around us slowly hint at this doom and dread of the world we're playing in, more and more as the abyss rises. They make us question, is this whole thing really worth it? Does anything we do actually matter? I mean, we're supposed to be the chosen one, but it doesn't feel like it, as we're constantly told that there's no point and that this isn't a world worth saving. On top of that, all the NPCs have different personalities and characteristics that make them unique, whether it be the way they talk, laugh, treat you. It seems they are their own person instead of a character that's supposed to benefit us on our quest. In fact, a lot of the NPCs act hostile towards us, and the ones that don't seem to want something out of us. They seem to want to gain something out of us. Take Zena, for example. He only tells you information when you buy something, but when you don't, he appears to be very hostile. Same with the merchant and Undeadburg. Now, there are a few to this exception that are people which I feel emulate life in a way, as some people are just genuinely kind. Andre has to be a great example of this. All he wants to do is make us weapons and help us on our journey. He even tells us, make sure we don't go hollow, which has its own meaning, but I think in a way it's a metaphor for not giving up in our hardest times. Another one of these examples is Solaire. He doesn't want anything from us, he's just nice, and he wants to find his own son, which, by the way, isn't a child, it's literally a son. He's a simple guy who's struck with the tragedy by the end of the story, as he finds his son, but at the cost of turning hollow. He's a perfect example of how everything comes at a price. That, sure, he succeeded in his goal, he got what he wanted, but at what cost? To become a mindless zombie just like everyone else. Thinking, making us think, is it worth it to achieve your dreams to sacrifice everything? These questions are given to us in such little amounts, yet done so perfectly. I could go on and on about all the NPCs and the tragedy they have in their own way, as most of them aren't inherently bad people, but they are layered in their own ways. Some of them are good people who end up falling into tragedy and heartbreak. Others have malicious intent that are trying to betray our hero in a certain way, and others are just assholes. It's a well-rounded world with incredibly well-rounded characters. The bosses in this game for a lot of people are hit or miss. However, for me, I think for the most part, they're incredibly amazing. Now, I know the combat compared to the later games is simple and janky. However, I don't mind that much with these bosses. Sure, some of them are way too easy, but for the most part, if you follow the set in stone order that you're supposed to with the villains, you'll understand that the bosses slowly but surely get harder for majority of the game until they decide, fuck it, we'll just give you whatever we want to give you. Which I guess is fine, which I think is kind of what happens around when you get to the Lord Souls in the DLC. Well, there are many I just want to list off. Here are some of my favorites. The first one that really stands out to me is the Gargoyles, as this is the first one I beat since I played this with my dad and my sister, so I didn't beat the Taurus Demon or the Asylum Demon the first playthrough I had. I felt a big triumph with this one, as the first two aren't that hard if you're somewhat familiar with RPGs. This one takes a bit higher level of skill than the other two. I love the music for it, the designs, the mechanics. While being easier on your second or third playthrough, It still feels quite hard if you're like me and it's your first time and you haven't played any games like this before. It's creative and incredibly exciting and is very satisfying when you beat the boss. The next one that I think is very important to bring up is Quelaag. This fight is amazing in every single way. Her design is perfect, the arena is creative, I love her combat moves, their sword, and the lava that comes out of the spider thing that she has on her. But also, Quelaag is the first villain that has an added layer of depth. And it's sad when you come to this realization. After you defeat her, you enter through her domain, and in a hidden entrance, you find her blind sister, who still thinks she's alive, making you realize that Quelaag was just trying to protect her sister, and that she wasn't a villain in any way, shape, or form. This is one of the first realizations, in my opinion, where you start to realize that you're not some hero in all of this, even if you are the chosen undead. You're not this incredibly noble knight that is only fighting evil. Some bosses you fight are innocent, some you fight are not, and you're forced to do this against your will as you complete the game. It's not your choice to be completely morally good, because our character isn't. After that, the next important boss is Ornstein Smough. Now, this is not one of those boss fights where you feel bad for the main two. Fuck Smough. He is just an evil human being. However, it is just an amazing fight overall. Sure, it's second two-person fight we've had, but I think it's way better in this one, as it's more difficult in the sense that we have two people, but also they have completely different sets and moves, making it very hard to find a weak point in the beginning, as they both cover up their weaknesses so well. When you kill one of them, it combines with the other, becoming even stronger, which I find to be very creative. The stadium, the movement of the characters, their designs, everything about this fight is so incredibly perfect. The next fight that is worth mentioning is Sif. This is another tragic fight, as Sif is only trying to protect their master's grave. They want to prevent us from sharing the same fate as our master, however they also want to protect the remains of their fallen owner. It's a tragic situation in which we are forced to play as we murder this innocent dog. However, it just shows how cruel the world in Dark Souls is, how horrible it is. Good people don't always get a happy ending. The next fight that I think is worth talking about is in the DLC, Artorias. This might be one of the best fights ever, as it's hard, but also fair. It has this fast-paced combat style that we get in characters later down the line, and also his cutscene is just amazing. The design, the pacing, the battle, the music, everything about this fight is so perfectly put together, you feel as if you don't have a second to breathe, but also at the same time it feels fair. It also gives you a decision each time you need to heal, whether you should stop Artorias from buffing himself, or let your health pool go up, making you think what is the right time and decision for what. But also, Artorias is cool even without that. Even though he's this amazing badass character, at the end of the day, he's an example towards our hero as someone who tried to beat the Abyss but failed. A character that was heroic and had the same goal as the Chosen One, but couldn't achieve it. With this information, it makes us question, do we really have what it takes? What makes us so different? At the end of the day, we're not anything special. We're not a god or anything. We're just a hollow that refuses to give up. But is that really enough? After that, the final boss in the DLC is Manus. And Manus is one of the few villains like Smough that is quite literally the just pure evil, as far as I can gather from him. And everything about his fight is just so great. He has such an amazing and interesting design. His combat moves are so layered compared to a lot of the ones in this game, and they're so unpredictable to where you just have no idea what's happening and you just have to react to it at the last second. And just the way they incorporate his incredibly creative design into the fight is just so great. And the arena is interesting as it's small, but also it feels big at the same time because of how dark it is. It's so perfectly done. And Manus as a character is just so interesting, as he's the embodiment of darkness. He's the embodiment of evil, opposed to our character who is trying to, fight through and, sort of in a way be the light of this world. Be someone that can, help this world go back to the peaceful place that it was. And we see a character like Manus who, his whole goal is literally just to, cover the whole world in darkness. But overall, phenomenal boss. Probably one of my favorite bosses in the game just in general. Lord Gwyn is a battle many consider lame, as he could be easily parried. However, the point of Gwyn isn't for him to be hard. He's not supposed to be some ridiculously difficult boss battle. His whole purpose is to show a man who is dying, a man who's clinging onto the last of what he has, someone who refuses to let the flame go. But it's hopeless as we see him struggling, sometimes grabbing at us as what seems to be desperation. He's a man past his prime, past what he used to be. We slowly watch him fade away as the fight ends, slowly watch him crumble, fall, as he fears in the inevitable darkness that he ends up crawling into. It's sad and tragic, as we see a man so desperately try everything in his power to prevent the inevitable. The areas in this game really are amazing. Some of them have their own separate music, some don't, but I want to go over a couple of them. One of my favorites is definitely Firelink Shrine. It's the hub that also doesn't feel like it. At first you feel safe here, as it's the only place where nobody's really gonna attack you unless you're trying to seek violence. However, slowly but surely as the game progresses, it feels more and more unsafe, such as the Fiber Keeper dying, the bonfire not working, then these serpents appearing talking about the Age of Darkness. What seems at first glance to be a safe and innocent place turns out to not really be that, especially when the final boss turns out to be there. We see this as a safe haven, but slowly we start to feel less and less safe, and I think it progresses brilliantly. The next place I want to bring up is Blighttown. Blighttown was supposed to be a place that was, salvaged, in a way to be peaceful, but then became the danger zone that it is. It's just interesting to me how a place like Blighttown, which the original intention was to be a safe place for people to hide, but wasn't able to, showing the true hopelessness of this world. That, is it truly worth saving when, trying to bring a new age of anything when you can't solve the issue at its core? The next place that I feel is worth mentioning is Darkroot Garden. At first, it seems very out there and weird, and it doesn't belong in the story, which is also great. It makes it interesting in its own way, but it seems so different from the rest of the areas, and once again, that's what makes it interesting. It has this odd, almost euphoric feeling about it where it's peaceful but still tense at the same time, as there's still enemies trying to kill you. It also possesses the grave of one of the most tragic characters, Artorias. I just find it fascinating that a place that seems beautiful on the surface is also one of the most deeply disturbing and haunting places at the same time. Then there's the depths, which has no real meaning or anything, but I just like the aesthetic it has. It's gross and grimy, which perfectly blends with the graphics this game has. It just fits so well with the boss as well, the Gaping Dragon. However, Anor Londo has to be one of, if not my favorite place in the game. This area looks beautiful at first glance. The design, the buildings, the view. It looks so different from the rest of this horrid world and feels like this huge breath of fresh air. But then once you enter, you start to notice. It feels, hollow in a way. It's quiet. There's nothing but guards and, some demons here. You have no NPCs to talk to besides the Firekeeper, Solaire, and the Blacksmith. However, it feels as if something's not quite right, which can be revealed after you kill Ornstein Smough and shoot the princess. You see, Anor Londo was an illusion the whole time. This amazing, beautiful place with castles and kingdoms is all fake. The one place where you almost think there's a sense of hope and beauty in this world is shown to be what it really is. Grim, dark, dreadful, just like the rest of this hopeless world that we're in. I've talked about the combat mechanics of the bosses, but I didn't talk about the combat in general. I know when you compare this game to, games like Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, it doesn't seem as good. But for the time, and honestly even now, I really like the combat. It has the best mechanics that we see in later Souls games that work so well. A lot of the core mechanics that you see here. And it has this sort of janky combat that's a little different than the other ones. That feels very oddly satisfying. And I just think it works very well. It's kind of rough on the edges, but it has this gritty, grim feeling that the other Souls games don't really have. It's not as smooth, and it's not trying to be. It's trying to be this more visceral in a way. And I think the mechanics do a great job at that. Now, are they perfect? No, but they set a foundation that has worked for years, and I believe works well in this game. Dark Souls' atmosphere is unlike anything I've ever seen in any piece of media ever. It's very different. I'll do my best to explain it, but it's going to be very hard because there really is no game that has it like this. It fills you with the sense of hopelessness, of dread, while also trying to lift you up and put a smile on your face at the same time. The enemies, the unfair obstacles, it all makes you feel that despite the fact that your character's name is the Chosen Undead, it sure as hell doesn't feel like it. If anything, it feels hopeless. You feel powerless, as if you're pushing through as hard as you can every fight to do what you can as a measly hollow. That's why I feel like, as much as it can be annoying for them to add bullshit, that makes the game not just hard for no reason. It fits perfectly with the setting and atmosphere and the character that they're trying to build. They don't want you to feel like you're the chosen one, despite the fact that you are. Because if you feel like the chosen one, you feel powerful as if nothing stands in your way, it's every other generic game on the market, and it's not as fun. But the fact that you feel almost powerless at certain points, as if you have no control of the situation whatsoever, is what makes the atmosphere so great. As it just feels like it's more about a struggling man overcoming all the odds, despite how difficult they are. And in the tunnel, there's occasionally a light, the occasional bit of wholesomeness that you get from Solaire and Sigmire and Andre that makes you want to push forward, because that's the kind of game Dark Souls is. It feels horrid and dreadful, almost as if you're completely alone, but there's these bursts of light that make you want to keep playing the game and overcome the odds. I know it's hard to pinpoint the themes in a game like this, especially when the story isn't very straightforward, and you kind of have to look for any sort of meaning, but I do think there's a theme in here. You see, the world is broken, the abyss is going to rise, hollows are everywhere, and it feels doomed, it feels pointless. I mean, what is the point in saving the world if it's completely against us? Places will give you hope, like Anor Londo, only to let you down, and to make you question what the point of all this is. While places like Blighttown are just out there and blunt, and show you the cruel reality of the world from the start. But there's a line that you hear a lot in this game, and it's along the lines of, "Don't you dare go hollow." Now you could say this is just a straightforward answer, saying, oh, this means to not die or whatever, but really it means something more. In this game, being hollow doesn't just mean dying a certain amount of times. It means giving up on your dreams, your ambitions, everything. So essentially, we are told not to give up. Through the Asylum, through Undead Burg, through the Undead Parish. No matter what the bosses are, we face the obstacles along the way. No matter what it is, we should never give up. We should never go hollow. Which is what the game is trying to tell us, that no matter whether this world is doomed or not, whether everything feels as if it's crumbling around us, you never give up. You never stop trying, even if it seems like you should at every sign. And that is the real message of the story.